All right, everyone, welcome in. Ready to dive back into the Dune universe with Chapterhouse, Dune.
Oh, absolutely. This one's a doozy. Buckle up.
Will do. So we're tackling book 6 this time, trying to wrap our heads around all the characters, the conflicts, what it means for humanity's future, all that good stuff.
It's a wild ride, this one, full of twists and turns you won't see coming, that's for sure.
And we've got some fascinating excerpts this time around to unpack. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's worth mentioning the story behind the book's title itself. Did you know that Chapterhouse, Dune, wasn't actually Frank Herbert's idea?
You're right, it's easy to overlook that little detail. Yeah, it was actually his wife, Beverly Herbert, who came up with the title.
It's amazing how much influence she had on the Dune universe. I mean, she was a writer herself, right?
She was, and a very talented one at that. Frank often talked about how instrumental she was in plotting out the Dune books, especially in capturing the female perspectives, which, let's be honest, are kind of a big deal in this universe.
Understatement of the century.
Uh-huh.
But it's tragic, because Beverly passed away before Chapterhouse. Dune was finished.
It is. It makes you wonder how the story might have unfolded differently if she'd been able to see it through to the end. We'll never know, but the book stands as a testament to their collaborative genius.
Absolutely. Okay, so for our listeners who might need a little refresher, can you set the stage for us? Where does Chapterhouse, Dune, pick up in the grand scheme of the Dune universe?
So, we're picking up after the events of Heretics of Dune. The scattering, as you know, has completely reshaped the universe. Humanity's exploded outward, scattered among the stars, new cultures, new threats. It's a whole new ballgame.
And the Bene Gesserit, they're not exactly sitting pretty in all this chaos, are they?
Not even close. They're struggling to maintain their grip on power, facing challenges both from within and without. And the honored matress, well, let's just say they're not making things any easier.
The honored matress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they really burst onto the scene in Heretics of Dune. But they're even more formidable in Chapterhouse. Dune, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. 16 planets have already fallen to them by the time this book starts, each conquest more brutal, more ruthless than the last.
16. Wow. What makes them so dangerous? I mean, we know a bit about their methods, the sexual slavery, the violence, but what are they after? What's their end game?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Herbert drops hints here and there, but we never get a clear answer. It's like they're driven by something primal, something desperate.
It's almost like they're running from something, even as they're conquering everything in their path.
Exactly. And that makes them even more dangerous, wouldn't you say? An enemy with a clear goal is one thing, but an enemy driven by fear, by some unknown force, that's a whole other level of terrifying.
Okay, so we've got a universe in chaos, these mysterious and ruthless honored matres vying for control, the Bene Gesserit. Well, they're not exactly the unified force they once were, are they?
Not at all. In fact, we find them more divided than ever. They're questioning their methods, their leadership, even their core beliefs.
And at the heart of all this turmoil is Mother Superior Odrade.
Oh, Adrade. Now, there's a fascinating character, a brilliant strategist, but even she's feeling the pressure.
In those dreams, those visions she's having, they seem pretty important, don't they? They're like more than just dreams.
Definitely not just dreams. They're premonitions, glimpses into a future full of blood and water, as she describes it. Odrade interprets them as a sign of impending doom, something even greater than the threat of the honored matress.
Okay, now that's just creepy. So she's got internal conflicts, external threats, and now these cryptic visions to decipher. How does she even begin to handle all that?
Well, she makes some pretty bold moves, that's for sure. Some would even say reckless.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, she decides to form an alliance. And not just any alliance. We're talking about an alliance with a figure many Bene Gesserit consider their sworn enemy.
Wait, are you talking about...
Sighthill, the Talailaksu master
Oh,
himself.
knew it! But why? I mean, Scytale represents everything the Bene Gesserit have always opposed: genetic manipulation, playing God with life itself.
Exactly. It's a desperate gamble, a sign of just how desperate their situation has become.
And I bet not everyone's happy about it, especially not Belanda.
Oh, Belanda is fuming. She sees it as a betrayal, a sign that Odrade's losing her grip. And you know what? She might have a point. Bringing Scytale into the fold is like playing with fire. You never know when it might burn out of control.
This is where it gets really interesting, though, because it's not just about defeating the honored matrix anymore, is it? It's about the Bene Gesserit confronting their own past, their own methods.
100%. The scattering has changed everything. The old rules don't apply anymore. The Bene Gesserit can't just rely on their old tricks, their manipulations. They have to adapt or die.
It's like that saying, evolve or become extinct. And speaking of adaptation, there's that brief mention in the Lucilla excerpt about the Jews and their strategy of complete cover. It's a completely different approach to survival than what we see with the Bene Gesserit.
Talk about contrast in strategies. While the Bene Gesserit are all about influence, about shaping events from the shadows, the Jews have learned to survive by becoming invisible, blending in.
Protecting their identity by disappearing into the fabric of society. It makes you wonder, is there a single right way to survive in a universe as chaotic as the one Herbert has created?
That's a question that resonates throughout Chapterhouse. Dune. Are the Bene Gesserit's methods outdated? Can they adapt to this new reality? Or will their reliance on control and manipulation ultimately lead to their downfall?
So many questions, and we're just getting started. It's almost like Frank Herbert is holding a mirror up to our own lives, isn't it? I mean, we like to think we have things figured out, and then, bam, life throws a curveball, just like the scattering.
Totally. Chapterhouse. Dune is all about that struggle to adapt, to find your footing in a world that's constantly shifting, and figuring out what you're willing to do to survive. It really makes you think.
It does. And the Bene Gesserit, they're facing that exact dilemma, aren't they? Clinging to their traditions, but the universe is telling them, hey, time to evolve or get left behind.
It's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're losing control, and they can feel it. The honored matres are just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. It's not just the external threats, but the internal ones, too. Like with Belanda, she really embodies that resistance to change, doesn't she? Always questioning Odrade's every move.
Belanda, yeah. She is not on board with Odrade's little alliance with Scytale. Not one bit. Can you blame her? It's a risky move.
Risky is an understatement. Scytale is basically the poster child for everything the Bene Gesserit have always stood against. Talk about making a deal with the devil.
For sure. But sometimes you have to make tough choices, even if it means compromising your values, right? At least that's what Odrade seems to think.
It's a gamble, that's for sure. But let's talk about the honored matres for a second.
Mm.
Odrade's got a rather unorthodox plan for dealing with them, doesn't she?
Yeah, instead of fighting fire with fire, she's going with, I don't know what the metaphor would be. She's playing a different game entirely. Infiltration. Espionage.
Which brings us to Merbella, the captured honored maitre. Now that's a story.
Right. Odrade sees an opportunity in Merbella. She's not just a prisoner, she's a potential asset. A way to understand the enemy from the inside out. Maybe even turn the tables.
But that's assuming Merbella is even remotely susceptible to their teachings. What if it backfires? What if she's just playing along, waiting for the right moment to strike?
That's the thing about Odrade. She's a risk taker. She knows the Bene Gesserit can't just sit back and wait to be defeated. They have to be proactive. And Merbella, she's the wild card in this whole game.
Frank Herbert was a genius at crafting these multi-layered narratives.
Yeah.
The action is always there, but it's the moral dilemmas, the psychological battles that really get under your skin.
Totally. And he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff. Like with the honored matres and their use of sexual slavery, that's not just about power, it's about control, about breaking people, body and soul.
And it makes you question, are the Bene Gesserit really all that different? I mean, they're more subtle about it, but they're still manipulating people, playing with their lives.
It's a good question. Is there really a difference between coercion and manipulation, between overt and covert control? Herbert doesn't give us easy answers. He wants us to wrestle with these questions ourselves.
Okay, so we've talked about Odrade, Belanda, Scytale, Merbella. But we can't forget about Miles Tegg. He's finally coming into his own in this book.
Oh man, Miles Tegg. This is where we really start to see what he's capable of. The memories, the training, it's all starting to click. And let's just say the honored matres are in for a rude awakening.
He's become this incredible blend of mentat and warrior, a strategist and a fighter. It's like Frank Herbert took the best parts of both and combined them into this unstoppable force.
Right. And his connection with Duncan Idaho. Seriously, their relationship is one of the most compelling parts of the book.
Talk about mentorship. Duncan sees something special in Tegg, and he's determined to help him reach his full potential, even if it means putting himself at risk.
He sees the echoes of his own past struggles in Tegg, the burden of memory, the pressure to live up to expectations. It's like a passing of the torch, in a way.
And speaking of powerful forces, we've got Shiana and her sandworms. She's like this wild child, this embodiment of nature's raw power.
She's the wild card, right?
Right.
The one no one can control, not even the Bene Gesserit. And the sandworms, let's be real, giant sandworms never go out of style.
They're iconic. But there's something else I wanted to touch on, the no chamber. It plays such a significant role in this book, almost like a character itself. It's more than just a hiding place, wouldn't you say?
It's almost oppressive, isn't it? All those hidden rooms, the constant fear of discovery. It represents this whole atmosphere of paranoia and secrecy that's taken over the universe.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the stakes have never been higher. The Bene Gesserits aren't just fighting for their own survival, they're fighting for a future where knowledge isn't a weapon, where people aren't afraid to think for themselves.
Right. They're flawed, sure, but they represent something important. Curiosity, knowledge, the pursuit of understanding.
So where do we go from here? We've got Odrade playing this high-stakes game with the honored matris, Teg embracing his full potential, Shiana and her sandworms waiting in the wings. What's the next chapter in this wild ride?
Well, let's just say things are about to get really interesting. Buckle up.
Last we saw Odrade, she was on her way to the heart of the honored matris power, completely alone. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Bold move, for sure. Walking into the lion's den like that. But you know Odrade, she never goes in unprepared.
This is true. She's got her wits, her Bene Gesserit training, and those cryptic clues about a hidden threat lurking out there in the scattering. What do you think she's hoping to achieve?
It's like she's trying to put together a puzzle, right? With only half the pieces. She knows there's more to the honored matris than meets the eye. More to their aggression, their ruthlessness.
And she's betting on herself to figure it out.
She's betting on the future of the Bene Gesserit, maybe even humanity itself. No pressure or anything.
So what happens when she comes face to face with the big boss, Dama?
It's electric. Two powerful women, each at the pinnacle of their respective orders. The clash of their ideologies, their sheer presence. Frank Herbert knocked it out of the park with this one.
The Bene Gesserit, all about strategy and subtle manipulation versus the honored matris, fueled by raw power and, let's be honest, a healthy dose of ego.
Dama, you can tell she underestimates Odrad, sees the Bene Gesserit as outdated, a relic of the past.
But Odrad's not one to back down from a challenge. How does she handle Dama?
With incredible cunning, even as Dama's prisoner, she's planting seeds of doubt, hinting at a threat so big, so terrifying, that it makes the honored matris look like, well, a minor inconvenience.
She's playing the long game, even in captivity. I love that about her.
It's classic Bene Gesserit, isn't it? Never underestimate your opponent, always be 10 steps ahead.
Speaking of strategy, while Odrad's playing mind games with Dama back on Chapterhouse, we've got Miles Teg going through his own transformation.
Oh man, Teg, this is where he really comes into his own. All that potential, all that suppressed memory, it's like a dam breaking.
He becomes this weapon, this perfect blend of mentat intellect and military genius.
And let's not forget about Duncan Idaho. Talk about a mentor. He guides Teg, helps him navigate the flood of memories, the burden of his past lives.
Their relationship is one for the ages. It's a beautiful thing to witness, especially in the middle of all this chaos.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection, mentorship, it matters. It can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And then there's Shiana, the wild card in all of this.
Yeah.
Riding a sandworm into battle against the honored matris. Frank Herbert, you've outdone yourself.
Epic doesn't even begin to describe it. It's a clash of civilizations, a testament to the raw power of nature itself.
Shiana embodies that untamed spirit, that connection to Arrakis that even the sandworms recognize. She's a force to be reckoned with. So, let me get this straight. We've got Odrad playing mind games with Dama, Teg embracing his full potential, Shiana leading a sandworm rebellion. Where does Myrbella fit into all of this?
Myrbella, oh, she's caught in the middle, torn between her honored matron upbringing and the Bene Gesserit teachings she's starting to embrace. It's a tough spot to be in.
She has to choose a side, right? So who does she end up with?
She chooses a third path.
A third path. Now you have to explain this.
Myrbella, she sees the flaws in both sides. The Bene Gesserit, with their manipulations, the honored matris, with their brutality. She realizes there's a better way, a way to combine the strengths of both while leaving their weaknesses behind.
That's a powerful message. It's not about picking a side. It's about forging your own path, finding a better way forward.
Exactly. And that's what she does. But as with all things Herbert, he leaves us with some unanswered questions.
What do you mean? What about the final confrontation? Who wins?
Well, that's the thing. The Bene Gesserit, they do defeat the honored matris, thanks to Odrade's planning, Teg's strength, Shiana's, well, Shiana-ness.
But there's always a but.
Odrade disappears, vanishes without a trace.
What? How? Why? This is torture.
We never find out. That's where the book ends. Chapterhouse. Dune was the last book Frank Herbert published before he passed away, so her fate remains a mystery.
Talk about a cliffhanger. You know he did that on purpose, right? Left us wanting more.
Oh, absolutely. And it's brilliant. Keeps us talking, theorizing. What happened to Audrey? Did she choose to disappear? Was she taken? Did she...
Okay, we get it. So many questions and no easy answers. That seems to be a recurring theme with Frank Herbert. He really makes you work for it. But that's the beauty of his writing, isn't it? It stays with you long after you've finished the last page. Well, folks, there you have it. Another deep dive into the incredible, mind-bending world of Dune. We explored the themes of power, adaptation, and the struggle for survival against impossible odds. Frank Herbert left us with a universe on the brink of change, where the only constant is uncertainty.
And hopefully he left us with a lot to think about. Until next time, keep exploring those dusty corners of the Dune universe. And remember, fear is the mind killer.